Hey folks, people at the table lacking manners? Just doing whatever they want during a game? Doesn't that drive you crazy? Well, stay tuned next as we talk about some table manners. Hey YouTube, EvilDM here. What's up, listeners? I hope you're enjoying this series, as this is another episode of the EvilDM Sage Advice. And this week we're going to talk a little bit about table manners, or things that should go on during the game, or before the game, or when you're actually sitting at the table as a group of your friends. So tabletop gaming should be fun for everyone, DM and players. Should someone be disruptive, it's the job of the DM to ask the player to knock it off. Likewise, if the DM is the one being disruptive or acting in a certain way, a player needs to step up and ask them to knock it off as well. When I say knock it off, a simple "not now, let's talk later" is suffice. Save it for after the game, unless it's something that needs to be dealt with, like harassment or just a stupid joke that's bothering someone over and over, which basically falls under harassment. But these things should be dealt with straight away. Nothing should be held off. Now, you want to be respectful to one another at the table. Yeah, they're your buddies. Maybe they're not your buddies. Maybe you're at a local gaming store, and these are just brand new friends, because eventually gaming buddies do become your friends. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they do. Also, it could be a convention game, so it could be complete strangers that you'll never see again, but you know, the old saying of life, do unto others, you want them to do unto you, so do unto them how you want them to do unto you. So if you're going to treat them with respect, chances are they will treat you with respect. Another thing to remember, don't hog the spotlight. Give everybody a fair chance at the table to talk. Yeah, you may have a great idea, but maybe Johnny across the table has a great idea too, but he's having problems getting that idea out because he is a little nervous, he stutters, or he's just not sure of himself. Just relax and give him a chance. And then when he's done, say, well, I have this other idea. And then let the DM decide from there if your idea should be heard or not. Maybe Johnny is a person that doesn't speak up a lot, and his idea is something that's just out of nowhere, and the DM's like, well, we're going to go with Johnny because he doesn't really do anything. Well, that's not always 100% correct or fair. Sometimes it's what you have to do. But don't hog the spotlight. Things you should bring to the table when you do start your game, or, you know, go to your friend's house or go to the gaming store. Bring your own paper, bring your own pencils, and your dice, and a player's book if you've purchased it. Now, not all these things are always necessary, because a lot of DMs are really great, and they'll be like, yeah, just show up. And that's all they care about. They'll have some dice for you, they'll have some paper for you, they'll have some pencils. Some DMs even keep character sheets, because they like to make sure players don't swap numbers around. And I ran into a couple people over the years that have done that. So it's not just a, wow, nobody does that. Yeah, I had a player that used to swap around numbers, change his alignment whenever he felt like it. He went from, my alignment in my campaigns, I don't let players play evil all the time, unless I trust them. And this was a fairly new game, a fairly new person in the game, and he was playing Lawful Neutral, which he really wanted to play. All of a sudden, his character became Chaotic Evil, and I didn't know because he swapped it. And he was playing pretty shittily going forward, and I was like, what the hell's going on? And one of my other friends was like, oh yeah, he was bragging about how he changes his numbers, and he changed his alignment, and you don't even know because you're so clueless. So, that's fine. I continued the session like that. The next session we came up from, I started the session, and I went, Tim. Not his name, made it up. Tim, let me see your character sheet. And I took his character sheet, and I said, okay, and let me see everyone else's character sheet. So I went around the table and looked at everybody's character sheet, and then went back and I said, Tim, why did you change your alignment? And he said, oh, I didn't change my alignment. We went through a whole thing like that, and I said to him, I was like, listen, no. You know the rules of this game, and that's not one of the rules of the game. You changed it. I know you bragged to people about it. So here's how it's going to be. I said, come here. We spoke on the side, and I said to him, this is your first warning. I don't want to have to do this. This is the dumbest thing in the world, but this is your first warning. Please don't do this again. And he was like, yeah, I'm sorry. He was cool with it. Ever since then, I didn't have a problem with him, and I played with him for probably 3, 4, 5, 6 more months before he actually had moved out of the area and was no longer able to play with us. And he became a really cool player and a good friend. So, Tim, out there, Thanks. So, okay, so you don't have to bring those things to the table. Player's Handbook, if you have it, digital, or if you have it purchased, great. They're pretty cheap right now, so you might want to just grab one to have it, because it's always cool to have your own books. You don't have to keep saying, hey, can I borrow your book? Hey, can I borrow your book? Because other players are like, whatever. Sometimes they don't care. Also, when you're going to a game over somebody's house, it's a good idea. Don't assume the host is going to feed you. It's a touchy subject, yeah, but bring your own snacks. And if you want to bring snacks for other people, that's awesome. But bring your own drink, bring your own snack, and if the host or other players provide more snacks, more the merrier, that's fine. But don't just go there assuming, well, the host is going to feed me, so let's hope so. And it becomes a weird situation. If you want to make sure you bring money, because then if you didn't have time, you can always be like, hey, are we going to go order something? Or, hey, I know you laid out some snacks. Here's like $5 for the next couple of weeks to cover me for snacks if I, eat something or drink something. And chances are the DM or the host will probably be like, no, don't worry about it. But it's always good to offer. I had a player in one of my old groups back when I was living in Pennsylvania. This is probably about, at this point, 10, 15 years ago. And this dude was down on his luck. He never had any money. He never brought any snacks. So everybody would pay for him. Everybody would give him food. Everyone would buy dinner for him when we got dinner. It got to the point that people started bringing their own snacks. Nobody went out to get dinner because nobody wanted to pay for this guy. So it became the whole, he sat in the corner by himself and had nothing because everyone else was just so annoyed that he never got any money, never paid anybody back, never brought a snack, nothing. So going forward, we all decided that for that situation, we were just going to all donate. Every game session, we were going to donate $2. If you couldn't donate anything, you couldn't. But $2 went to a little pot. We threw it in there, and then the DM would take those whatever we had, 6 players. We took that $12, and every week the DM would go buy snacks and drinks, and that was it. If those snacks and drinks ran out, they ran out. Either the person went out and bought more, or we just left it as it was. That's just how we handled it going forward. And that person, who didn't happen to have any money, finally did get a job and started donating and, feeling better about himself. So, situations turn around. But sometimes things like that happen. Also, don't be scared to ask for a break during the game in case you get overwhelmed. Because sometimes things happen, you get too into it, and you start getting, maybe your heart races, or maybe you're feeling uncomfortable. Talk to the DM before the game. Be like, hey, if I need a break, is it cool I get up and go to the bathroom? For an extended period, maybe go out for a smoke, or maybe we could take 5 or 10 minutes. If I ask, hey, can we take 5 or 10 minutes? It doesn't mean, I want to break the action. It just means I need a break personally to compress and take in everything that's happening. And most of the time, yeah, I've done that plenty of times with my games, and every hour or every hour and a half, I'll be like, all right, 5-minute break. Everybody just goes to smoke, or they'll go outside, or when we played the comic book shop, they will go buy snacks, and they go look at the comics. Buy comics, helps the store owner out. So those are things to do. Halfway through, you do it. Just talk to the GM. He doesn't really care. Chances are he'll be like, yeah, breaks are good. Sometimes there's a hardcore DM that likes to just play straight, but that's kind of weird. But I guess I can't do that anymore. I'm old. So also, listen to your DM. He has final say over the rules of the game. He is the arbitrator of the game. If you have an issue with how he's treating you or someone, about a ruling that is non-crucial, as just a ruling of the game, talk to him after the game or on a break, unless it's one of those situations it needs to be said, like harassment or something right then and there. But if it's just a ruling or the way he's handling a monster or something, don't grab the book and look it up and stuff like that. Just talk to him after the game. Say, hey, I didn't like the way you handled this. Can we, discuss this? And chances are Jim will be like, whoa, oh, I didn't know, or oh, here's my side of it. And maybe if you hear his side of it, you'll be like, oh, I'm sorry. Either way, never interrupt the game unless you really have to, is the main key point here. It's also cool to ask questions of fellow players during the game, but don't do so during important DM monologues or when DM is describing something that's happening in the game. Nothing is more annoying than the DM who wrote a prepared thing or is reading a module from an NPC, and he's reading the description of the room or reading what the NPC is saying, and all of a sudden you're talking to Johnny about, a ruling in the book or the sports game last night of, oh, did the Braves versus the Mets, blah, 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 blah. And then you go, wait, what? Can you read that again? There's nothing more annoying to a DM when you do that. Doesn't ask a lot. I mean, he's not asking you to give him 100% attention, but at least give him the courtesy to pay attention when he's doing certain things like that. Okay. So now another touchy topic, player versus player interaction when it turns out to be player versus player friction. It happens. It's part of role-playing. It's part of character development in the group. Things happen in real life like that, just like it'll happen in role-playing. I know quite a few people frown upon player versus player, and they automatically put that as a house rule. We don't want to see anything. It's a bad thing. But it really does help promote roleplay and develop characters as long as it doesn't get out of hand, as long as your as long as your players can separate reality from fantasy. And I did the long stares because there are people out there who cannot separate that. And they have issues with that, and they live through their characters and think their characters are alive. It's just a game. Remember that. Take it from that point of view, and you should be fine. Yeah, you put a lot of hard work into your character. Yes. Yes, you do. And you love your character. Yes, you do. But all in all, it's just numbers on a piece of paper. It's just paper. That's all it is. It's a fantasy in your mind, and you can move forward. It's not like it's a real person. With that said, don't let it get too far, player versus player. Sometimes people will just take it too far and also take it personally. You can tell when this is happening. I had this happen in one of my groups when one of the players was playing his alignment correctly, and he actually had gone evil in the game because he fell through temptation. So he started interacting with another player, and she got really upset about it because she didn't like the fact that there was this friction in the group between her and him, and she folded her arms, she put her stuff together, and threatened to leave because she couldn't take it anymore, all because this player was playing his character the way he wanted to play his character, which was, I believe it was chaotic evil at this point. He was playing it correctly. He asked me what he should be doing, and I said, okay, well, you should be taking this and running because that's what your character would do, but you do what you want to do. And he said, fine, and he did what he wanted to do. He didn't take my advice at that point. He did what he wanted to do. And she got really shitty about it. And there was a lot of friction about it. I had to stop it at that point because it would just it became beyond silly ridiculousness at this point. And the player, he was just like looking at me like, oh, I'm just playing my character, nothing personal. And she took it very personal. Like I said, someone doesn't know how to separate reality from fantasy. Happens. We moved on from there. We all talked and we all had a laugh afterwards. So, happy ending. Okay, so not able to make your game, showing up late, just can't get there? Email your DM, text your DM, call your DM. Throw a rock through his window with a note that says you can't make it. Kidding, don't do that. That's going to cause a lot of problems. Do this as soon as you know. It's very important that you do this because a DM plans for a certain number of people coming each week. Even if he's a fly-the-seat pants by guy like me that whims everything, you still have an idea in your head. I still have an idea in my head when I know I have my 5 players showing up that I want to focus on 5 players. Now, if there's 4 players, that's easy enough to root. But if there's 3 players, I got to do a lot of adjustments when I'm throwing creatures at them and stuff like that. And also, if you don't tell your DM you're coming in and he has something planned, maybe he's one of those DMs that plans out a lot and he has an arc planned. And he decided that today, Ernie was going to be the focus of the adventure because it was his turn to have an arc. And he likes to give certain players a little arc, and, it's fun. Players like that. They like to be the little spotlight for a little while, the center of attention. But Ernie doesn't show up, so now he's like, oh well, now it's going to be a weird adventure because Ernie's not there. He's going to have to rearrange everything quickly. So if you can't show up, just please message your DM somehow and let him know as soon as possible. An hour before the session is not a good idea. It really isn't. I understand that is some people's way of notification, but don't do that. Try as soon as possible. Things happen. Yeah, life happens. Maybe last minute, that's why it was an hour before. But just try. That's all I'm asking. And finally, you're going to want to worry about certain things like, I said certain things. Wow, I can't speak today. Certain things at the table not to be talked about, such as what type of language you want at the table. Yeah, I know, if you're in a private house, who cares? But maybe there's kids around. Maybe you are the type of adults that don't like having cursing at the table. Maybe you're at a local comic book shop or a gaming store, and common courtesy in a public place, you don't curse. That's just common courtesy. You don't sit there dropping F-bombs and S-bombs. You curb your language because that's how polite society acts. Maybe not in your area, who knows? Just something to think about. Also, you may want to decide no politics at the table and no religion. Well, no modern day, our day religion. It's best not to sit at the table and talk about how much you hate XX or like XX in politics. And notice I left it at that because it shouldn't be said even here. I don't like talking about it ever. I don't allow it in my games. And even living here in Texas, I don't like hearing politics. So, my players know, don't talk about it. We don't talk about it at all. So it just makes everybody happy. Because you don't know where everybody lives on the spectrum of politics. You don't know where people live on the notion of religion. Who knows if you may insult somebody because you said the wrong thing, thinking they are thinking like you. So these are some things you just want to keep in mind when you're sitting at the table. Hopefully I've given you a whole bunch of stuff to think about and something that maybe you'll use in your game, maybe you won't use in your game. Just let me know. Hit like, why don't you comment below and hit the subscribe button if you already have. Hit the bell icon to get that next video as it comes out, because the next one I'm going to probably be doing is going to be prepping for a convention, which is convention season's coming up, so why not? Let's talk about that. So this has been Sage Advice. Good night, everybody.